Hello. Yeah, I don't have a
Hi.
presentation. I have, like you said, very little time, and my background is in the humanities as well, so it will be hard for me to keep it short. Uh, so, like you said, I have two objectives here. That's one is to shamelessly promote the Digital Competence Center, which since this year is the one-stop shop for research IT and data support that connects all researchers to services of the university library and the Center for Information Technology. So we are here actually to help you with making your data fair and publishing your data open, for example. Um, but that's I will keep that part short. So remember that name, the Digital Competence Center. So my second objective is to say something intellectual. You can be the judge of that, but about, of course, also the previous speakers and something more broadly in respect to data management in the humanities. And I've thought about this actually during the previous talk, so hopefully it comes across. But instead of talking about James Bond, then I want to talk about Indiana Jones, because my own background is in archaeology, and it's easy for me to refer to that. Uh, but of course, in the context of what was said previously. So Indiana Jones, of course, I think we all agree that he doesn't really score very high on the scale of scientific conduct, but he does have there's one aspect about him that is in fact very archaeological. That is that his methods are very destructive. So in archaeology, uh, we have this relationship with data, like actually Natalie said. A lot of people in humanities have, because of the diversity of the discipline, a different relationship with data. In archaeology, the situation is that we actually destroy our source as a consequence of our method. So excavation is a destructive method. So the context of the data we retrieve is destroyed. So that makes it very hard to reproduce the results. For that reason, we are actually started doing open science more or less already 20 years ago, because we're obliged by law, by heritage law, to publish all the results of excavations publicly. So because it's so hard to reproduce the actual contextual information, we publish everything. And actually, it's very much part of the tradition to do data publications. So we write very big articles with very large appendices and very big books with a lot of photographs and drawings. But thinking about that, I have actually here, if you see me, I have here a coffee cup. I excavated this from my desk. Uh, but think about the nature of data, because if I want to publish this cup, what I would do as an archaeologist, I would draw the cup, I would describe the cup, I would photograph the cup. I can even now make a 3D model of the cup, and I can publish all of this digitally. I can share it with the whole world. This might be enough for a public publication, but for an actual scholar, the cup is the source material. So all the data I produce on the basis of this cup is actually arguably interpretation. So I wrote this down a sentence. It's quite complicated. That's why I wrote it down. So it's more or less a statement. Just thinking about what the previous speaker said. Um, whatever data I produce on the basis of this artifact is less relevant for the reproducibility of research than the artifact itself. So meaning that someone might want to reproduce my research, my results. What he would want to do, or she, is actually revisit the actual source, come as close to the actual source as they can. So they want to see the cup. And actually, this is part of the archaeological tradition as well. We have this, I'll show you mine if you show me yours tradition. So what happens, what actually recently happened to me, is that I have this article published with all kinds of drawings of artifacts. Someone sends me an email and says, I want to study of your 100 or your hundreds of artifacts, I want to study these 5 pieces, because they refer to a specific shape or So they want to actually, have develop new research on the basis of this original data. So that made me think about the publication of data. We think it's enough, or we have always thought it's enough to publish all these drawings and these descriptions. But should the metadata of these artifacts actually not include the physical location where they are? And I have one good example from the humanities at their own university, is that we have a collection of bones, bone material. We have an archaeozoological department. They have approximately 5,000 bones. It's something called a reference collection. Or this is something that's maybe even a century old. The idea of a reference collection. So what used to happen, and what still happens, is that people physically go to this collection to compare their own materials. But in respect to FAIR, findability, accessibility, so it depends on your knowledge of the existence of these reference collections, whether they are findable to you. Then you ask someone for access, so that's accessibility. But we can, of course, take this now a step further, and that's what they actually did at the zoological department, is that they published the metadata in CSV files in a repository, dataverse, where you can find every piece they have in the reference collection with actually the location of the cupboard or the closet in which these pieces physically exist. So you can now, on the basis of this repository, so it's very well findable, you can find whatever piece you want, and you can say, okay, I will go to the institute, and I know that in this specific location, in this drawer, I will find this piece. So thinking about this, I thought this may be something to think about, that we should actually do this with all of these types of archives, and there are so many in archaeology. Now, coming back to this researcher that asked for these 5 pieces, it's just very hard for me to tell this researcher where these pieces actually are. Wait, they are somewhere in an archive or a depot in Rome, but I actually haven't written down where the specific pieces are. So yeah, I think that's what actually made me think about, even though we have this tradition of openness, we can actually do better still, and increase the findability and accessibility of these physical archives of materials. So thanks for actually for the previous speakers for raising this thought, and yeah, that's what came into my mind.